All right, we're going to get started, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for Conversations in Contemporary Art. My name is Hans Lujan Torres, and I am an administrator and researcher here at Concordia University. I'm also a recent graduate from the Department of Art History, and I'm so excited to be here with you guys and with our featured guest, Margaret Dragu. Yay! We're so fortunate to have her here from Vancouver, so it's been such a special week. But a reminder for those who may be new, SICA, as it is affectionately known, is a visiting artist lecture series based within the MFA program in the Department of Studio Arts here at Concordia University. It has been running since 2012 with a mandate to bring in artists, scholars, and educators with a variety of practices and perspectives to engage with students and faculty at Concordia, but also the broader arts community here in Montreal and further afield whenever possible. We want to acknowledge that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka are recognized as the caretakers of this island known as Tiohtià:ke, which is also a traditional gathering place for the Algonquin, whose name for it is Moonyang, and other Indigenous nations and diverse communities. We respect the connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. So before I pass things over to Margaret, I'll provide some general reminders. This conversation is being recorded and will be available on YouTube at a later date. After Margaret's presentation, we're going to open the floor for a Q&A, and I will run a microphone to amplify questions. We're going to wrap up at around 7:30 p.m., and we invite everyone to join us afterwards at N-Bar. And actually, but as we head out to N-Bar, the MFA gallery is open with Stephen McLeod's work, so we invite you guys to check it out on your way out. And yeah, let's get started. I'm just going to do a quick intro for Margaret. So who doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to do one anyways. Margaret Dragu has created performances, videos, publications, and participatory artworks since the 1970s. Dragu's early practice was formed in contemporary dance and burlesque scenes in New York, Montreal, and Toronto. Her prolific body of art in performance, film and video, and collaborative and community-based art spans more than 5 decades. Dragu has also worked in commercial film, television, and radio as an actor, producer, writer, and director, has choreographed for theater, film, and television, and has curated and written about performance art, dance, culture, and politics. Margaret was a recipient of the Governor General Award for Visual and Media Arts in 2012. In that same year, she was named the Eminowskis in Performance Art by the Festival 7A11D, and in the year 2000 was selected for the FADA Performance Arts Center publication series, Canadian Performance Art Legends. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else in between, Margaret Dragu.
Hello, thank you very, very much for coming. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to acknowledge that I come to you from the so-called Vancouver City, which exists upon the traditional, ancestral, unceded, and stolen territory of the Coast Salish peoples, the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. I would like to welcome all of our local, national, and international lifelong learners. I would like to welcome all our colleagues and friends from universities, colleges, academies, technical artisanal schools, as well as senior, junior, middle, primary, and elementary schools, and also preschool, play school, early childhood education daycare centers, as well as free schools, reading learning circles. Also welcome to our apprentices, mentors, interns from unions and working and learning groups, and all librarians and all archivists from the Old Wives' Tales Institute to the School of Hard Knocks. Welcome everyone. I would like to do 2 things. First objective. As promised, in my title, Dr. Dragu explains it all to you. I would like indeed to explain it all to you. I mean, all, alles, tout. Te lo explica todo. All. My second objective, to prove my theory or notion that my lived history as a feminist and my lived history as a performance artist are braided or woven together, and they reflect or refract, similarly or perhaps equally, the same challenges of multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, intersectionality, the interstitial, and so on. Towards that first objective, Natalie, I would like video number 1, please. It is 3 minutes long. Thank you, Natalie. Towards my second objective, I would like to read from a quote from an article that I got from the Public Health Agency of Canada in Ottawa, Ontario, from December 2006. It is from the Centre for Chronic Disease Prevention and Control. It's written by Bernard C.K. Choi. And I chose this as part of also my practice, which is as a critical exercise specialist in the communities for more than 30 years. And so I have this very medical part of my practice. I'm on the bottom of the totem pole. The doctors are up here and I'm down here. But I like this quote, which I shall share with you regarding definitions. Multidisciplinarity, says Bernard C.K. Choi, draws on knowledge from different disciplines but stays within their boundaries. Interdisciplinarity analyzes, synthesizes, and harmonizes links between disciplines into a coordinated and coherent whole. Transdisciplinarity integrates the natural, social, and health sciences in a humanities context and transcends their traditional boundaries. Towards my first objective, I would like Natalie now to play video number 2 regarding Universities, Symposiums, a collection of documentation over some years. And this video is 6 minutes long. Inhale. Exhale. Inhalation. Exhalation. Relax your shoulders. Breathe into the belly. Soften your lips, your jaw. Maybe open the lips and create a little sound as you exhale. New divisions of intellectual labor, borrowing across disciplines, permeability of boundaries, blurring and mixing of genres, Plato, Aristotle, Rabelais, Kant, Hegel, Marx, Descartes, Renaissance man, integration, Piaget, Bloch, Levi, Strauss, Barthes, Derrida, Foucault, linguistics, psychoanalysis, Gestalt, hyphenated sciences, integration of behavioral sciences and clinical practices, chaos theory.
One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world.
Hello, please come here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Dr. Douglas M. Jarvis. Come forward. Dr. Brenda, Dr. Doug, Doctor, You sent us Dr. Cat, Dr. James. You sent Dr. Dr. Scott, Dr. Helena, Dr. Dragu. It's a great pleasure to meet you.
I'm Dr. Nick. I'm Dr. Lat. Nice to meet you.
Dr. Derlin.
Hallo,
Hallo,
Dr. Tina.
Dr. Tina.
Nice to meet you.
Freut mich auch.
Pleasure to meet you.
Liv. Dr. Dragu.
Freut mich sehr.
Hello, Dr. Derek.
Oh, Professor Dr. Tiago. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you, Natalie. Towards my second objective, I would like to read from a book, an anthology called Bringing It Home, which was edited by Brenda Lee Brown with a foreword by Rosemary Brown, published by Arsenal Pulp Press in 1996. I wrote one of the chapters, and it was with the prompt of what brought you to feminism. How did you become a feminist? And I'll just read two portions from this. I spent the early 70s insisting that I was not a feminist. I felt too different from those I was meeting who were older, more educated, and richer, not to mention our different backgrounds, class, experience, opinions, and beliefs. In the mid-70s, it was very hard and very lonely being the only stripper at feminist meetings or media-organized panel discussions. Feminists were getting in touch with their feminist rage about violence against women and all forms of abuse, while exploring many of these issues through investigating pornography. It was a time of passionate and lengthy discourse about sexuality, morality, power, violence, and pleasure. Being a well-known stripper, artist, and briefly media personality meant I would find myself discussing these issues under media-invented titles like Young Street Spokeswoman, or Libertine Intellectual, or Wild and Crazy Free Speech Artist. I had some really unpleasant and grueling battles with feminists on live television. Phone-in callers screamed at me on radio shows, and even at home on my answering machine, accusing me of supporting the patriarchal power play that objectified women and led to violence against them. Some wanted me to look at snuff films and admit that I was responsible for the death of other women and to see myself as a traitor. One woman invited me to her apartment for a gourmet lunch, cold stuffed fish, gado-gado sauce, and salad, I recall, then whipped out her hidden agenda for dessert. A nonstop harangue that my stripping at a Toronto club was the direct cause of her receiving sexual comments from construction workers, her sister, the secretary, being pawed by her boss, and children being lured into cars by pedophiles with candy. Some feminists merely pitied me and wanted to save me. They were willing to hire me as their cleaning lady so I wouldn't have to work as a stripper anymore. Although I was a famous cleaning lady as well as a renowned stripper, I wanted those feminists to see that I was an independent artist and working in a sexual and working class world that they knew nothing about. I wanted working conditions in strip clubs to improve, and I wanted their support towards that goal. I didn't want to be censored or judged. I was 25 years old and full of ideals and absolutes. I felt more solidarity around class lines than gender lines. Even though my experiences weren't something the feminists I was meeting could relate to, I enjoyed the grassroots contact and consciousness-raising groups, gatherings on snowy Ontario nights outside the Morgentaler's abortion clinic, and the sharing many pots of Earl Grey tea during folding, stuffing, mailing sessions for various causes. The concept that the personal is political helped me make sense of the world and my life in it. The idea gave me a sense of self-esteem by demonstrating that I and women like me counted. It gave credibility to my personal, domestic, and community problems. Instead of thinking I was crazy or a complainer, I began to feel my problems and concerns were actually important issues for everyone. Accepting the personal is political gave me the conviction that I could help change things for the better if I acted with other women. It also gave me the commitment to do so. Eventually, with the help of the Canadian Labour Congress, CLC, and the Association of Canadian Television and Radio Artists, ACTRA, the short-lived Strippers Union was formed. We called it the Canadian Association of Burlesque Entertainers, CABE, and eventually got support from some of the feminists I had worked with in demos, meetings, and pamphlet stuffing sessions. There was a rise in the voice of bisexual women, who felt ostracized by both straight and lesbian feminists, and there were articulate spokesmen for sex workers in the United States and Europe during important women's conferences on sexuality. There was a lot of excellent writing by feminists against censorship. There was a parallel anti-censorship movement in the art community. All these voices felt welcoming and inclusive. Women who called themselves feminist and accepted me naming myself as one too, reached out to me, and I was ready to reach back. I closed the 70s saying, I am a feminist. Towards my first objective, Natalie, can you play video number 3? It is called M. Dragu's Museum. These are some very old performance clips, and this video is 6 minutes long.
May I write you, Nora?
No, never. I forbid you to do that.
But
at least I can send you.
Nothing. Nothing.
Help you if you need it.
No, I say I'll accept nothing from strangers.
Nora, can I ever be more than a stranger to you?
Oh, Torvald, then the most wonderful thing of all would have to happen.
Nora, can't I ever be more than a stranger to you?
Oh, Torvald, then the most wonderful thing of all would have to happen.
What is this most wonderful thing?
What is this most wonderful thing? Tell me.
Then we, you and I, would have to change so much that... Oh, Torvald, I don't believe in wonders anymore. I don't believe in wonders anymore.
But I want to believe in them. Tell me.
We'd have to change so much that
our life together could become a marriage. Goodbye.
First 4 days, no response. Just me by myself. The commuters all driving, sleeping, talking on cell phones, falling asleep on the bus.
Eine Versammlung abhalten, to hold a meeting. This means that you are able to gather people together, whether they are of the same mind or other mind, to be with you. This is a wonderful trait and will help you with your love problems and your love life. You can have a coming together, a meeting. Does this resonate for you so far?
Yes, it's excellent.
The card in the south is the problem you are presented with in the moment, at the present.
You have been described as the great mother hen, who stretches her wing out and calls her chicks in for protection.
And my father could not eat a meal without a piece of bread. It was like communion almost. And he worked in the mines.
My grandmother baked bread. My mother baked bread, not because it was a particularly nurturing thing to do, but because it was a very cheap, nutritious way to supply food.
Turn, punch, turn, punch. Lentils. Yeah, they cook faster than bean meat. Four, more, 3 more, 2 more, last one.
Thank you, Natalie. Towards my second objective, I would like to read something from the publication Live at the End of the Century, Aspects of Performance Art in Vancouver, which was edited by Bryce Canyon and published by Visible Arts Society and the Grunt Gallery in the year 2000 after the big 1999 performance cabaret festival. I wrote a chapter called I Am Not, and I will read a part. "30 years ago, I was a dancer and choreographer. My two earliest mentor teachers, Yoni Kivetes Young and Laura Foreman, were choreographers who became visual artists. When I worked with Yoni in Calgary and Laura in New York, we collaborated with artists from other media, music, sculpture, theater, painting, and felt more comfortable presenting the work in art galleries than in theaters. I studied German expressionist modern dance, influenced by Hanya Holm at the Louis Nicolai Dance School in New York, as German modern dance is primarily concerned with employing the body to describe space rather than employing it as an object of technical perfection. It isn't surprising that I, like my mentor teachers, Yoni and Laura, are more at ease with visual artists than dancers. My first performance artist collaborator conspirator was Clive Robertson, who was operating a gallery out of a former dry cleaning factory in Calgary in 1972. He enlisted the dance company I was a member of to execute an international correspondence performance art festival that he curated. Despite Clive's bad posture and the chaos of performing public actions, like getting on and off an intricate sequence of buses with chairs strapped to our heads, I felt more in sync with Clive than the dancers with whom I rode into town. I also felt a passionate response to the posted correspondence performance art by Tom Dean of Montreal. Plied with an Alberta bursary to pursue jazz dance with Eva Van Genchi and Eddie Toussaint at Les Ballets Jazz de Montréal, I looked up Tom Dean and combined studying jazz dance with Eva and Eddie with making performance art with Tom. I liked Tom's visionary visual vocabulary and how his strong spirituality was also present in his work. We presented Un Petit Spectacle, a tap dancing duet by Tom and myself, at the vernissage for his show at Véhicule. One of his pieces, which I just loved, was masking tape lines on the floor that transformed the space into a three-dimensional cube when you stood at one particular spot from the gallery's second floor balcony. By day, I taught dance classes in the polyglot community art school called Art Dump Workshop, and by night, I stripped in burlesque palaces of Montreal. Then also the South Shore, Quebec City, Chicoutimi, Trois-Rivières, Chibougamau. A professional fire set to procure insurance money for the landlord produced a conflagration which destroyed my entire street. I dug through the debris, picked up some charcoal bits, and moved to Toronto, a place I personified at that time as the land of banks. Surprisingly, I stayed there more than a dozen mostly wonderful years, producing a body of work which spanned the underground and the commercial. Bars, cabarets, galleries, museums, theaters, strip clubs, after-hours booze cans, shopping malls, parks, streets, parade routes, storefronts, municipal hall, courthouses, provincial legislature, ferries, rooftops, and parking lots. Also in film, television, video, radio, and even television commercials. I passed through between medias with little analysis. They were simply opportunities for performance work. I was a passionate collaborator, pairing and trioing with painters, sculptors, photographers, theater artists, writers, sound designers, scenographers, fashion designers, filmmakers, video artists, and activists. I like discovering and reacting with the visual language of another artist and together provoking a whole new product that couldn't have existed without our combined forces. Like all adolescents, my work was often stimulated by reacting against things. Classic modern dance was anti-narrative, therefore I found narrative highly provocative. Some of my performance works in the 1970s were so close to plays that I eventually worked in theater as an actor and choreographer until I left that medium screaming with frustration. All those tyrannical theatrical conventions, not to mention the army-like hierarchy of everybody reporting to Herr Director. But after hanging with the art and dance world and feeling both my class background and lack of formal education, my work became more political. First in content, performances about class, labor, and feminist issues, and also in form. Indeed, the balance, perhaps the struggle, between form and content is the most pervasive dynamic in my work over these last 3 decades. Post-assault, there was a period when I only performed outside of Toronto. Then I only performed for the camera or only for very rare events with a lot of protection. Eventually, I made solo performance works by choice and also because it was cheaper and lighter for the touring I'd come to enjoy during my self-imposed banishment from Toronto. The final year I lived in Toronto, I spent mornings with my psychiatrist and afternoons working as a secretary for a First Nations lawyer analyzing Aboriginal treaties and advising policy changes to the Department of Indian Affairs and Northern Development. It's now been nearly 15 years since I moved to Finslew, an historic fishing village on the south arm of the Fraser River outside of Vancouver. I immediately felt welcomed by the Western Front and later by the Grunt Gallery, Video Inn, and Public Dreams Society. It is a less public and more private life than my first 15 years as a performance artist, which may have more to do with changing times than my personal life. Working as a performance artist on the West Coast has given me the opportunity to absorb a different regional history, a panoply of poetry, jazz, politics, public art, clowning, mask, mime, moving sculpture, intermedia, parades, processions, publishing, especially self-publishing, ritual, and more. My performance art has changed as I've come to reflect upon the aesthetics and values of the West Coast, which I see as holistic and communal. I'm comfortable and secure enough to return to improvisation and collaboration with a renewed commitment. I'm most happy when my performances allow me to enter a ritual psychic shaman state where I can improvise and feel free to go to another level because of the engaged presence of the audience. I choose actions and dances which are dense and imbued with many meanings on a formal level, as well as in content. I love not knowing what might happen next, but having complete faith that the audience and I will find it together. 30 years to learn to breathe peacefully. Towards my first objective, we will see another video, which I will explain first by saying that it is called a selection of Chapter 4's. Choreographer Justine A. Chambers, composer E. Kage, and I began working on New Normal, an embodied novel, in 2017. We made 13 videos based on texts I wrote documenting my experiences in public transit while recovering from 2 hip replacements, and thus revealing our social contract in action. While we wait for the Musée d'Art Contemporain and the Martin Gropiusbau to contact us and ask us to come and show that full project there, we continue to pull threads from this original novel to generate many deep meanings around Chapter 4, and we call each a Chapter 4, whether they are live performances, online streaming events, or broadcasted video exhibitions. So, Natalie, can we have video number 4? And this video is 9 minutes.
Neon green screen. Text, New Normal, an embodied novel in thick, yellow-lined lettering. Then in white, dusk to dark audience participation. And in black, performance for camera.
Ringing a bell with this finger. So put your right hand up, and just like bing, like ring a bell. It's just that is the move, and the whole point is that we just watch ourselves ring the bell. We do it once up to our right. Stop in the name of love.
Margaret stands on a patch of clover between the sidewalk and the road. Behind her, about 20 dancers stand in 2 long lines, and behind them, the train yard fence. Like a choir director facing away from her choir, she leads them through the 3-part gesture of dinging the bell. In pink, dance 1, doing. Margaret grins cheekily.
I'm slowing down now.
The dancers behind her move carefully in sync. They watch their own right hands as they flow. Ding the bell high, cross the body and ding at heart height, cross more and ding by the left hip. A gesture called stop in the name of love, opening the palm to the front, relaxing the arm. Slow, meditative, this hypnotic dance, everyone very focused. The romantic couples, the strangers who just met, the professional dancers, all carefully executing these gestures, reaching, dinging, repeating the short series of gestures again and again, unrushed. The evening light softens, blue-gray clouds filling the sky beyond.
$139, $140, $143, $144,
$179, $180, $181, $182, $183,
$141, $142.
$200, $201, $202, $203, $204, $205, $206, $207, $208, $209, $210, $211, $212, $213,
$335, $336, $337,
$142, $143, $303, $304, $305,
$946, $947, $948,
$950, $901, $902, $903,
$888, $889,
$963, $964, $965, $966, 966.
A montage of endless doors from Get Smart, Airplane 2's voice-activated sliding doors, Star Trek's transporter room. The old shows fade to black. Text: New normal, an embodied novel. A bright red glittery curtain sweeps open. Chapter 4, The Bed is a Portal. In this film, an old woman and a young woman at home in their own beds. They will both try to use their beds as a portal to go somewhere else or be someone else. The first half of the film, they cover and uncover themselves from the blankets, the sheets, full body or bits of body, and alternate between the beginning of getting up and the ending of lying down. The film shifts from a view of each bed over and over, an exploration of attempts. Brightly lit, the beds are both shown from above. The young woman's bed, white sheets with gray diamonds, the old woman's gray with white zigzags near a window. As the days pass, the women show up in different clothes. They continue to grapple with using their beds as a portal. A hand emerges. The old woman in a sleeveless nightie tucks herself under the sheet, the conscious, unconscious exposing of body, movement, feelings. The young woman, one leg hugged in, now sits up, reaches, and covers the camera with her hand. The young woman sits on the side of the bed, leans onto one arm, limb by limb, comes onto the middle of the bed, pushes back her long hair, and comes to rest. From her side, the old woman sweeps her legs toward the edge of the bed. A large scar across her hip. She grasps her leg, unfurls herself, stands.
She's dressed in an orange shirt and has a knee pad on her left knee, which is black. She's shuffling the cards. She chooses one.
Stupid, some people are so stupid. Spin around and bear your size. As he made his way through the crowd towards the door.
We fail, we fall.
He has some standing passengers. Do you eat the skin? He has others. Do you eat the bone?
Thank you, Natalie. Towards my second objective. It's a great opportunity to be asked to continue to write artist statements. This is the artist statement I wrote in November of 2023. I am grateful that young people want to make art with me. My artist statement in 2020. I am interested in art, health, community, social justice, death. My artist statement from 2019. I make art by combining body feelings with intellectual and spiritual concepts. I walk, think, and dream about them, visualizing, conjuring, expanding. Sometimes chance, magic, serendipities, interventions, and ruptures appear. Finally, an urgent thing must be done. Mapping, scoring, photographing, and a loose architecture emerges. Beginnings need more listening and less talking. Allowing the metamorphosis to appear is better than overwatering, over-fertilizing, and especially over-weeding the new tender shoots. Towards my first objective, Natalie, I would like you to play video number 5. It is called I Am a TV Station, I Am a Publishing House, I Am a Church. It is 3 minutes long.
Big breaths. We're breathing through the ribs. Back to center. Other side. Big breath in, big breath out.
Jag bestrålet overfaldet hiphop-fyren ventede, mens jeg langsomt kunne at klemme sig ind i toget, da dørene lukkede sig bag
Thank you, Natalie. If you could put the final photograph up, please. Thank you. Can you hear me? Great. So in conclusion, and I'm going to come over here with my disco spotlight. This is two photographs of me and Colin Campbell from, maybe 82, I forget. One of them is called My Wireless is Running, and one of them is called I'm Already Changing My Mind, and I can't remember which one is which. It was a long time ago. But I like that title, I'm Already Changing My Mind. And in fact, I've been thinking a lot and talking with my colleagues here in Montreal and my pals, particularly Nicole Crew, and talking about how we just love changing our mind. And I've changed my mind a lot lately. And here's some of the things I've changed my mind about. I have, as I said in the talk, I think it was yesterday, that I used to run around in universities when I was invited and say, or when I taught at Emily Carr ever so briefly. And one of the first things I would say is, because I'm an autodidact and I hadn't finished, high school, I would look at the students, I would say, you don't have to be here. You don't have to be in this school, you can just go out and make art. And I believe that completely for, decades. And this is just not true. I mean, it's something I could do because of the way the world was when I was young and the way the community was built when I was young and what real estate was like when I was young. I just wallowed around in time. I mean, I just I had so much time for art and everybody around me had time for art. And you don't. And I shouldn't say that anymore. And I'm not going to. So I changed my mind about that. I've changed my mind about archives. I think I talked about that yesterday too. Young artists would come to me and say, oh, I like that thing you did, blah, blah. Can I do something with it? Can I reenact it? And I'd say, go ahead, knock yourself out. I tried to get rid of everything that was underneath my bed, all my archives. I was getting rid of these VHS tapes and I called Vivo in Vancouver and I asked the technician, how do I recycle this crap? Like the cardboard casings, I know what to do with that, but the plastic bits and that tape, what am I supposed to do with this? And he said, I'll figure it out, I'll call you back. But instead somebody else phoned from the archives and said, don't do a thing. We're coming over with big boxes and gloves. And they took it all away, which was really nice. I thought, well, that's over. But it got more complicated, and I kept meeting people like Felicity Taylor and Nicole Crew and Britta Wertmüller from Berlin, and interesting people who work with archives in very creative ways. And I realized, oh no, it isn't about redoing or trying to preserve something. It's not like, putting up butterflies in frames. It's a whole other very interesting way of looking at who collects history and why. And maybe we should be in there collecting our own history because they will erase us if we don't do that. Us and people like us and more people like us coming. And they do very creative stuff. They're just brilliant young people. So I don't say that anymore either. The archives are great. I've changed my mind about dance and I've changed my mind about theater. I have real reasons to leave dance and theater, and I don't love all theater. But I have met lots of really interesting theater people who do very creative things. As we were talking yesterday, the public recording people in Toronto, your PME people here in Montreal, people in Europe, just very conceptual, interesting, fabulous things. And I just can't keep saying that because there's a lot of theater I hate that I still hate, but these people are really interesting. interesting, and so I can't run around saying that anymore. Dance for a long time has grown, like, over the many last decades. It was so conservative and restrictive. And now it isn't. I see a lot of conceptual dance work and really amazing choreographers, and so I can't say that either. The other thing is, I used to think that the millennial breakfast of avocado on toast was really stupid. You know? It's fantastic. And in conclusion, I'm still very worried about a lot of things. I'm worried about raging polarities, about the march of fascism, about climate and global change, about the rise of oligarchies and multi-corporations and capitalism on acid. But I also have a lot of hope, because I think art is really, really important. Art and making art with others and sharing art with people gives me hope. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you. For those of you who are like have other, I mean, this is why we did it early, I guess, for all of you people who've got to go see theater and ballet and so just let you know. Any questions though? I'm happy to chat more.
Yay, Margaret!
Questions, and everyone's just thinking about how, and soaking up everything we've just witnessed and watched and heard. I'm curious about your experience in returning to Montreal. You know, has that changed? And what has it been like to return to these spaces and these neighborhoods and architecture that, you know, was so pivotal for you at the start of your career?
Well, not just capitalism's on acid. I feel like I'm on acid, as all my like pals and handlers have helped me around over this last week of presenting, and particularly that performance tour that we did on the street with the dancing underneath the shack where I used to dance in the window. Just and it's those things that are obvious that I have memories of, but there are also buildings that are just little parts of memories that are like, I mean, it was 50 years ago. It's a long time ago. And yet, because of the nature of the development of real estate in Montreal, gentrification has a certain kind of layering process where some things are still visible, some traces are still visible, so they trigger my memories. So I kind of feel like I'm having a kind of post-traumatic stress disorder episode with occasional whops of acid, and every once in a while, like I'll just, it's very physical. I just feel this, sometimes it's like I'm in a time machine. I'm kind of going, I'm both then and now, but at the same time, or I'm consciously dreaming, or I'm on acid, or I can't quite explain it I don't really have a great vocabulary for it. But it's been very intense walking out, and I don't mean to make it sound like it's been all like traumatically awful. It's also been extremely pleasurable. It's been great, and working with Alex, and the Stella people, and everybody at Concordia has just been like, you've just been very welcoming. Hans, you're adorable.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Yes?
Hello. Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
I have a question for you that is a little bit about what I heard you talked about yesterday, but it's also about how you concluded your presentation today. And it's top of mind, I think, for a lot of people working in the arts right now, or who who aspire to work in the arts. And just as an example, Canada Council released their Explore and Create grants last week or 2 weeks ago, and I think the success rate was something like 15%. And the vast majority of those people who submitted applications are working artists. And you at this point have the sort of long view of what it means to be an artist and have a so-called career, and what it means to engage with capitalism on acid now. It seems to me that when you describe a changing opinion, when you're talking about the need to be in school, I think there's truth to that as an artist, if anything, just because institutionally the art world demands it as much as anything else. And yet the other side of it is a 15% success rate to have a project funded. So I heard yesterday you were talking a little bit about the spaces in between that institutional recognition and those moments when you make art for art's sake or find other ways to be an artist that doesn't look to that validation. So I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about that.
Sure, and that's quite actually in there are several topics, but maybe I will bring forth the idea of always looking for the workaround. For example, when I first came to Montreal, there were a few people who were just starting to work at the National Film Board, and they were making films. And there was maybe access to a little bit of video equipment. But even then, we were just exploring this church where I shot a film 50 years ago. But to shoot that film even then, which was like, when I think of it, like, it was like, so easy, rent and food and everything was easy street compared to now. But we didn't have any money, we didn't have a grant, and the only way we could do it was find other filmmakers and make a deal with them to use their equipment at night after they'd finished shooting. We would borrow it and bring it back in good condition, and talk to other filmmakers and get end reels of film to use because we couldn't afford film. So even back then there was this workaround based on what was accessible to us. And I think we always have to do that. As I was saying yesterday, I had 11 years when I never got a grant, just couldn't get one. But I never stopped making art. And so then I relied on my community and my friends to find ways of working around that so I could say get to Edmonton. Like if I can just get to Edmonton, then I will have a little show there and maybe I'll do a little teaching because somebody we'll just piecemeal it together. So that has always been the method, is the workaround. It's wonderful to get a grant and it's wonderful to have some money and it's wonderful to have a teaching position, although you work very hard for it. And it means you still have to produce art and you have to teach and you have less time to make the art that you want to make. It's all very, it's all feels, catch-22, right? But it's another institution that can help fund you with equipment and people and money and access and there's great things here, right, to harness and use, and people are still harnessing them for me. Like I'm not teaching in university, but I am either invited here officially or I'm lurking around lots of campuses studying paper. I'm not saying, sometimes my daughter takes me to task and says, but this whole anti-currency thing, Mommy, you're doing is programming yourself for poverty. And if I'm also going, I can't do it at my age, like 35, because I will limit my possibilities so much if I follow what you do. And that's perfectly true. It's my whole anti-currency thing, my economic model is based on being poor. right? I live just exactly on my old age pension, and I live luckily at the moment in senior housing where I have less rent than most people pay in Vancouver. And if I have a very abstemious lifestyle, I'm fine, and I'm happy to do that. And all my art things that I make and any way I make money, I put into my DWI account, and I use that to fund my own projects when I don't have a grant, which is most of the time. And as I said yesterday, we didn't get our travel grant to come here. So that thing that I did with all those kids at Simon Fraser, that fee that I got for that is paying for this trip. So that's just another workaround. But as I've worked with performance artists in Eastern Europe, who've been doing these workarounds for forever, it's just really important to keep making art. I mean, and help other people make art, and to go and see art. And it's how we are human in the social contract that we have created. We have to feel it and love it. And we all need it, and so we must contribute to it. So I think it's the most awful form of censorship is self-censorship, is to say, I can't do that because I just didn't get my grant. And then you have to rethink that project and find another way to do it, I think.
More questions? Oh. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. I was admiring all of your different mediums and styles and your transdisciplinary ways of doing it. And I'm wondering what has been the most inspiring and cathartic sort of style or medium that you feel there's immediately more to discover and explore?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I barely know what I'm doing today, let alone tomorrow, so it's very hard to project. But I think what's happening. Well, I like very democratic media, so that's why I'm attracted to free live streaming services and Linux kind of things, and work with people who like that kind of with technicians and artists and who also work with that, or groups who are also interested in that. I think because of the pandemic, I have different feelings about broadcasting and live streaming and live. I mean, I love that you're here. Live. There's a lot of reasons to stay home. I'm quite patterned to stay home. I can often say, oh, there's an opening at 7. I could just make beans and stay home and watch Netflix, because I'm used to it. But so I really love that you're here, and I love making live events. It's really a joy to be able to tour again and do live things and do things with live people. But I think the form of the moment is hybridity, so that we would have a live event. We would also be live streaming for people to receive it in as live a product that kind of loaf of bread can be for them if they're, say, in Berlin and want to stay up or get up early or whatever it is, whatever time zone it is over there, 9 hours, whatever. So they can be with us as live as they can, and then record it for people who really can't do either of those things. And I think that's how I'm making art right now when I can. That's what I do from my bedroom. Like when Brady and I were working with Interplay, the cards, and we were on my bed and visually transcribing each other to each other. It doesn't matter if you remember, but anyways, we did it live, and the stream was live, and people tuned in live, and then we created a recording, something much later. So I see, anyways, I would say this kind of hybridity for the situation based on our health and what access you have to media and who you can work with, I think is what's exciting me right now. And democratic media. I work with, pretty old equipment myself, and, use it, and use, free software and stuff. You don't necessarily need to have the latest pizzazz. So I think that's what I like. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank
you. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Margaret.
Hello.
Victoria. You can't see me because it's all bright lights in your face.
Oh, Victoria.
Victoria.
Oh, Victoria. Oh my goodness.
Yay, Margaret. Yay. Also, okay.
You were in Newfoundland, and that
I know, I
didn't actually.
recognized.
Yeah.
And I saw Kyle, we were outside, and for one la performance, one of those breakfasts.
Yes, one of the performances. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, great to see you.
It's great to see you. I'm so touched by the hopefulness, which is the penultimate. It is what is so needed. I have to be sad and angry for one small moment though, which c'est aberrant. It is, how is it possible that a Governor General award-winning artist is working in this framework of poverty? It makes me so angry. So I just need to air this anger and this sadness that I have around that for you and other artists in the same situation. And yes, hopefulness is what is required. And it's not meant to open up a can of worms, because that is a whole other topic for another conversation, perhaps over drinks, or maybe not at all, depends on what people are feeling. But it just needs to be acknowledged that this is a kind of burden that's there, or weight that we carry, being artists, whatever generation that we are, because we know that our senior artists who are honored are still living at the poverty line. That's just not right. Yeah. So yes, thank you for the hopeful message too, and the changing of the mind. Those two huge takeaways for me from sitting with you and listening to you speak about your practice.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Victoria, thank you for coming.
Hello. I have a question that is not so specific, but I would love to hear a bit more about your point of view on how key it is for the performance community and for young emerging performance artists to get out of their town and to tour, as you say. Because for me, it's like so impressive to see your career like that, and to see like how much you travel and meet all of those people that around the years, not only in Canada but across the world. And I think it's like something that is very specific to the performance community, is like the need to go elsewhere to meet the people that have like the same kind of these.
Yeah,
I would love to hear a bit more about that and how key it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're very right. I think it's important to get out, and it's of course been so challenging with the lockdown and our continued. COVID is still here. It's not like we're in some over thing. We are just negotiating in a different way. Deciding when to wear a mask. Traveling less. Taking care of each other. But I think it's really important. It's important to have a home community and to work with your community at home and make things secure and helpful and help each other You can't make art by yourself, you need a community. But our community is very international. I mean, it's a very weird practice, performance art, and yet it is everywhere. I haven't gone to Asia or those places, for example, mostly because I'm terrified of that airplane ride. You know, it's like, I can't imagine being in the air that long, frankly. But, and also nobody's ever invited me, so that's makes kind of a moot point, isn't it? But anyway, the places that I have gone and do go to are very fueling for me. We all face gentrification, so there's a lot of problems that we share, and it's, you know, we can all talk about the same problems and stuff when we get together. But what they're doing and how they're making art and how they're solving those problems is different than wherever it is that we're living. And it's really encouraging and hopeful to be with people who are doing something else. It's great to share ideas and to make plans to do things together with people in other cities and countries. It's just so nourishing. So I think it is really important for young people to try to do that. It can be hard to set up tours, or it's also a skill that you don't wake up one day and know how to do it. You know, like you have to be charming. Yeah, I could just totally support this idea that it is an important thing, and to encourage them to do that. Right on.
We'll do one more question. Yeah.
Hi Margaret, it's Felicity.
Oh, Felicity!
Hi.
My goodness, hi.
You called me young earlier. It made me feel really nice. So I just want to come back to this notion of the workaround as something that's like continuously lived, you know, in the trajectory of all that you have explained to us. Thank you for explaining all of it to us. And I'm looking at these images, and they also sort of are like depicting workarounds in a way. And then I'm thinking about your body and the works that you've shown us. And I guess my question is like, how can we think about your body at the different stages that we've seen tonight, kind of as a repertoire of the workaround, and as it's moved through your performance arc, engaging more and more with different like stages of mobility. I just remember being in Sackville like 10 years ago with you and having this same conversation.
Oh, did we?
Yeah. Very similar things.
Gagging on about the workaround and
well, the workaround and then the travel and the performance circuit and bodies and what it meant to like be embodied in different places, and then we have you here like in you know, a body as an archive of this continuous workaround. So maybe we could hear you speak a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I only have one idea, Felicity. You've exposed this. Well, I would say also, I carry my history in my body. Like, I am a living museum. I am a living archive. And, you know, it's an absolute luxury to be old and getting older. And I teach fitness and health and somatics and dance to people who are very young and people who are very old, people who are very sick, people who have conditions, people who have heart conditions, people who have osteoporosis, people who have arthritis, people who have prosthesis, people, people with everything you can imagine, people who are just depressed, people, how dare I say just depressed. And keeping people moving, keeping me moving. One of the reasons I kept me around the community center so long teaching also was that I was an inspiration for people. Like, look at that old woman over there. She's had 2 hip replacements and she is, look at what she can do. So go and work with her. And I don't actually sit around and regret that I can't do the splits anymore. I don't ask myself to do the splits anymore. But I dance all the time. It's so, recently, you don't see any footage, but recently I've been dancing a lot with Justine A. Chambers. We look great together. Funny, she's tiny, tiny, tiny and young, right? You saw her in the band, right? You saw some stuff, but we were actually dancing in the same space together, physically touching each other in the same space for this big project. We look great together. People also thought we would be funny together because she's so young and I'm so old. She's so tiny and I'm so huge. And how can you duet but things are so opposite, right? But Justine and I actually think we're the same height when we are in the same room together and we're either talking or dancing. And it's not a sadness, melancholy, or tragedy to me that I'm so old and I can't do everything I used to be able to do, which is great because it can be for some people. And I totally understand that as a reaction as well. And don't forget, as I said, I'm really interested in death, so it gets closer. I developed this meditation place called Malma Devotee. I can't even remember the name of the tradition it is, but anyways, we have these things called the 4 reminders that we do before we meditate, and they're all, 3 of them are quite standard, but my favorite one is, this body too shall be a corpse. And some days I just laugh out loud because I just think that's so funny. And some days I feel incredibly weepy, not even particularly because I'm going to die, but because even more people I know are going to die. And in fact, if life is fair and it isn't, I will die before everybody in this room. I actually want to die before everybody in this room. And in fact, that probably isn't going to happen. And that's why we sit and have that reminder before we meditate, is just to just practice that thought a little bit, like, this body too shall be a corpse, and we don't really have any control over when that's going to happen. Maybe a little impact, but basically not. And so that embodied feeling is great also. When we were with Alex on the street and she turned on Stevie Wonder, which from 1973, because that was my year, blah, 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 we were doing this historic thing. And I just started dancing and I just didn't give a shit. And a lot of things I just don't give a shit about. I used to sort of worry what people would think about me. I don't care. And that's also when you get older, there's so much less time. Why spend time worrying about that? It's very freeing. So the body and the spirit and the mind is just the only tool I really know how to work with. I do know how to edit video. And I've gotten much better at audio recording. Oh my goodness, you should see the early stuff I made. I was always doing a workaround about the fucking audio. The reason why I had different things playing and other soundtracks is because the sound I was shooting was shit. Workaround. I'm much better now. But really, it's the body. And even if there's a camera, or I call it a novel, or it's a quilt, or like in New Brunswick, Felicity, me and Pam, those quilting squares, it was really always just the body. It's always the body, other than my body. So do you.
Wow, I think just before we wrap up, I want to touch base on your love of archives, and I believe there's a website that is being developed. Maybe you can speak about it a little bit?
Yes. We're also, this is our soft launch. Mikkel Prue, who's right over here, wave, Mikkel. And Justine Chambers, and William Wheeler, and Britta Wildmüller, and I have worked on this digital archive called tryleather.net. Oh, I actually have some other things too. I have a few handouts here, which are for people who, I think it's one page. It's just one page, isn't it? Can I sort of maybe separate it into rows? You know how you do it in church? Can you do that church thing? I call those field notes, but it's really a little bibliography of some things that I referred to in the top. And then at the bottom is also two addresses for two web pages in one. There's my personal web page you can look at, which is just like a normal artist web page. But Try Leather is a digital archive, and it's interactive and really fun, and based on a deep dive into creating an archive through creating new work that originally was sparked by a very short video document that arrived out of the blue of an old solo I had done at 15 Dance Lab, I think in 1974 or 5 or something, that they sent to me out of the blue. And we started to create work, and COVID, blah, blah, cut to the chase, we decided to spend the rest of our budget to create this digital archive, this interactive archive, also with two designers, one from Montreal and one from Berlin, that were friends and colleagues of Mikkel's. And it's a really fun romp. I think it's better than a video game. And if you like dance, and you like performance art, and you like stripping, and if you like me, I think you'll have a really wonderful time romping around in it. So, go and play.
Thank yous. We want to thank Maya Ray Oppenheimer, who was not able to be here today, but she organized all of this as our secret convener. So thank you to Maya. Also thank you to Cal for assisting with all the organization and for hosting Margaret on this week. It's thank everyone at Studio Arts, also Natalie for all the projection work. For drinks afterwards. Our next Sika event is March 22nd with Lorna Bauer and Mia Donovan. So please join us then. Thank you all.